I'm Richard LeBaron. I'm a senior fellow at the Rafik Hariri Center of the Atlantic Council, and I've just come from a discussion in which we took a look at a paper that I had the privilege to author for the Council concerning U.S. Gulf relations, and it's called Building a Better U.S. Gulf Partnership. The paper and some of the discussion focused on how we can do better with our Gulf partners such as Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and others in fostering economic progress in Egypt. And I also talked about how we can build a stronger security and defense relationship with our Gulf states at a time when they have some doubts about U.S. intentions in the region. And I had two commentators, two very able commentators at the session. Bilal Saab, who's with INEGMA North America here in Washington, and Tulbah, who has been a collaborator with the Hariri Center for some time. He's the managing director of the McClarty organization in Washington. McClarty Associates,
That's right.
Is that right? Okay.
That's right.
And I asked them just to reflect just for a couple minutes on what they took away from our discussion today and what they would emphasize as the most important aspects of what will be an ongoing challenge in our relationships with our Gulf friends.
One of the clear takeaways, one of the points that came up over and over and over again, is that the foundation of these relationships is still fundamentally strong, and there's a lot of tactical cooperation that is really working. But the relationships need to evolve. The global macro framework is changing. The global politics are changing. It goes without saying that the region is undergoing massive and historic shifts, and the populations inside of many of these countries are changing as well as the idea of a citizen continues to evolve. So it's just natural that we're going to want to engage in a strategic dialogue, more of that at various levels of governments and between non-governmental actors inside the countries, to really increase the amount of communication, to talk about how do we align our strategic objectives in the region so that we can ensure we're working towards a common vision. It's not necessarily going to look like it's looked before the Arab Spring and before the last few years, but the fundamentals, like I said, are still very sound. Our strategic interests are still very much in alignment, and in order to surface those areas where we disagree, and both in strategy and tactics, we need to make sure we have forums for those types of conversations. The proposals recently from the Obama administration, specifically Secretary Hagel, are a step in the right direction, and it's clear that we need much more of that.
Thanks, Ali. And of course, you're very familiar with developments in Saudi Arabia. Do you think the Saudis have lost trust in the United States, or do you think this is a temporary factor that's at play here?
At the risk of sounding repetitive, let me go back to this notion that the foundations of the relationships are still very sound. Both the military cooperation, the cooperation on intelligence and counterterrorism, the economic and business relationships are still very sound. The question has to do with, we're in very turbulent times in the region. A lot of changes are upon us. And during those times, you're going to find times when one state wants to go one direction with a particular issue and one wants to go another direction. And we've had those types of disagreements. We've had those disagreements on Iraq in 2003. More recently, we've had them with how to handle Egypt and how to handle other transitional countries in the region. And most recently, we've had the same questions surrounding Syria and just in the last few weeks, the rapprochement with Iran. So those, if you're not talking enough, if you haven't undertaken that work of making sure that your strategies are aligned, your visions for the future of the region are resolved, then you're going to have some turbulence. You're going to have some difficulties. We've certainly seen those, and that leads to the kind of trust issues that you're referring to. But entirely reparable, we just have to, as your report actually recommends, roll up our sleeves and do the hard work of connecting at various levels of the government and ensuring that we're talking about those questions of future vision, ensuring that we're aligned, and as best we can, aligning our tactics accordingly.
Thank you, Ali. Bilal, I know that you have warned against not taking seriously some of these concerns that we're hearing from the Gulf and underestimating the depth of the concern being expressed by some of our Gulf partners.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Are we in a crisis, or is it just a temporary phase with the Gulf?
Well, first of all, let me congratulate you on the report. It so happens that the three of us agree on a fundamental point, and most people in the room, which is that, and it's really worth emphasizing, that the alliance is not at a crossroads. Okay, it is experiencing some turbulence, and it is very important to address the concerns of the Gulf allies for one very simple reason. Let's forget for a second that the United States has allies in a strategically vital and energy-rich region. That's not the main reason why they should address the concerns of their Gulf allies. The main reason, which is out of self-interest of the United States, and it's a very strategic point, that the United States has every interest in addressing those concerns, because by doing so, it allows it to be much more confident about its ability to implement this pivot to the Asia Pacific. The United States cannot leave the region and will gradually so, or reduce its footprint by leaving something that is much more messy that will force it to come back. Gulf concerns are hardly baseless. They are actually real, and I have difficulty with this conversation that we're hearing in town that those concerns are inflated or exaggerated, and that the United States should not be that concerned about its commitment to their security. There has to be consultation, absolutely. It has to be much more sustained. It has to be comprehensive, and it has to be honest. You can't just fly in, do a handshake, do a briefing, and then fly out and expect that all the concerns are going to dissipate. This is a recipe for misperceptions actually persisting.
Thank you, Bilal. You know, one of our participants in the discussion certainly agreed with the need for these frank conversations, the need for more nuance in those conversations, the need for a more strategic, less transactional approach. The question is, how do you get there? And I think that's going to take some effort on both sides, because we aren't really used to those sort of deep strategic conversations. And I hope that we can, in the Atlantic Council and through efforts like ours, we can help promote that sort of a dialogue both at a governmental level and non-governmental level. But I want to thank Ali Tulbah and Bilal Saab for being with us as commentators today, being with us on tape for a little while. I encourage you to take a look at the report that the Atlantic Council published today on Gulf-U.S. relations and building a better U.S.-Gulf partnership. And we certainly encourage you to offer us comments on our website about it. This is a dialogue not only that needs to take place between the U.S. and the Gulf, but between interested parties all over who are capable of contributing to this dialogue. So thank you very much.